Opposition leader Juan Guaidó says he will be exercising his functions as president as soon as he returns to Venezuela. Guaidó met with Vice President Mike Pence in Colombia this week despite being banned from leaving the country. He says he will be providing an audio message with instructions on what will happen next when he returns.
At least 4 people are dead from weekend protests. Guaidó has continuously called for aid to be delivered to the country. President Maduro has denied the aid, saying that the U.S. is fabricating the crisis.
Joining us now from Washington to talk about the situation is former USAID official Jeremy Konyndyk. Jeremy, thanks for joining us. So I'm very curious about this signal that Juan Guaidó is sending with these comments. What will that signal be? What can the people of Venezuela expect?
Well, I think something to watch is whether he chooses to continue trying to make the aid effort his leverage point for claiming political legitimacy. I think so far that hasn't worked out very well. It hasn't really advanced his cause. But just as importantly, for a country that is in the midst of a really extraordinary humanitarian crisis, it has not been successful in getting aid into the country. And I think that going forward, if we look at lessons from other crises around the world, one of the most important steps is going to be depoliticizing that aid effort. As long as the aid effort is a proxy for the political struggle, the aid is going to remain stuck.
So we heard that President Maduro is basically saying that this whole thing is exaggerated. What do you expect his response to be?
Well, I think he's clearly under some growing pressure because the people on the ground know what they're seeing. They know how severe it is. If you are a parent who is having to scour empty pharmacy shelves and secret WhatsApp groups and the black market to find really basic medicines for your sick kid, you know that the crisis is real. You don't have to be told that. You're not going to believe a politician telling you otherwise. I think the essential point is, as long as President Maduro and some of his international backers see the aid effort as the lever for getting Guaidó into power, they're going to be much more inclined to oppose it. And so separating those two things, putting them on somewhat different tracks, I think is important to forward progress on both.
As you know, Jeremy, Colombia is now calling on the United Nations to help solve the humanitarian crisis. Our Manuel Bojorquez has been covering the region for quite some time. I was looking through Manny's social media feed yesterday, and he shot video of a Venezuelan soldier defecting into Colombia. The situation there is so dire for people, even people that are in the military. But does the United Nations have any power to be able to step in and address this?
Well, I think the United Nations and groups like the Red Cross are probably the only actors at this point that have a chance of having credibility with both sides. And what we see with large-scale humanitarian responses is you can't do these things just through political leverage. You have to do them through consent and persuasion as well. And so, again, separating this from the politics, I think, is key to the way forward. And the UN and the Red Cross are much better positioned to do that than is the U.S. government, who, understandably, is both pursuing a political strategy and a humanitarian strategy. If those two are conflated, it's going to be hard for the aid effort to move forward.
We've heard the Vice President and others say no options are off the table. The U.S. is increasing their reconnaissance missions to Venezuela. Brazil is pushing back, saying that the U.S. cannot use its borders because, in Brazil's view, this behavior is the sort of thing that you do when you want to start a war. If the U.S. is not actively preparing for some sort of military intervention, then why the reconnaissance? The U.S. government does a lot of reconnaissance all over the world for a variety of reasons. I can't speculate in a terribly informed way about what their plan is with it here. I don't have the access to that kind of information that I had when I was in government. But I think they want to understand what things look like on the ground. I think they want to understand what does the power struggle look like there on the ground, and what can they learn from that. But I wouldn't necessarily read a whole lot into that right now.
Jeremy, we only got about 30 seconds, but I have a really important question. The United States' history in Latin America, in Central America, historically has not been a good one. I don't know a lot about Juan Guaidó. We know a lot about Nicolas Maduro, and we know that that country is now in a state of turmoil because of his policies. But to play devil's advocate here, is there a problem with the United States once again getting involved and backing an opposition leader that could somehow in the future come back to bite us in the rear?
Well, I think there are a lot of differences between this and some of the past U.S. adventurism in Latin America. For a start, the people of Venezuela elected Juan Guaidó through the National Assembly. He wasn't selected by the U.S. government, and his claim is really rooted in the Venezuelan constitutional process. I do think, however, that any sort of U.S. military engagement would be really ill-advised for a whole variety of reasons, not least because, as you say, it would come with so much historical baggage.
All right, Jeremy Konyndyk, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.